Okay, guys, I just thought it is about time we build for the brown-throated three-toed sloth here in Tzula Zoo. And here it is, the little habitat. It's cute, if you ask me. And we have the small fillers in here. But you know me, I don't know how to limit myself. So we needed a bigger building for them. So we have a gift shop. And we have a restaurant. And of course, if we zoom out a little more, this building is huge and it is our entrance to the zoo. And zooming out, I also did all of this foliage. So this video is going to be long and I'm gonna cut out a few bits so it's not too long. So if you want to see how I built all this or simply just learn more of the brown-throat three-toed sloth, then please keep watching. And my focus today is, of course, the brown-throated three-toed sloth. I'm sorry, it's a little difficult for me to pronounce. So if I just say this sloth, it is this one I mean. I will clarify if I mention any other sloth. But here, if I just say the sloth, it's this one. And if I say sloth in general, then it's old sloth. I will try to clarify, but again, I do the best I can here. This video is also a little longer than what I used to, so what I will also do is actually stop and explain some of the building choices doing this, since I have the time to do so, and a lot of the focus today is on the building, not on the habitat, of course, because we only have the exhibit box, so it is limited what we can do with it. However, I personally think I still did something quite awesome with it, so it's not just what is automatically in the exhibit box. I tried to make an outlook first. How big do I want this? What do I want in here? Which direction do I want it? And then I put in my exhibit box to work around it and see exactly where I wanted the path to go. I waited for the longest time to build the actual exhibit box out. And in general, here in the beginning, I just decided what do I want. The only thing I'm locked on at this point is exhibit box, restaurant. I want something with a gift shop, and I want something with a nice seating area and such, but I haven't locked anything in. I use this path, and if you notice that it's new, it's from the Planet Zoo Plus path mod. I made a video earlier this week, I think Thursday. It went up, and I really love a lot of these paths, so I just needed to start building with them. And we actually showcase a few of them today, I believe. Two of them today. Just needed to remember that. So here I have my idea. We're gonna have the shop on the ground floor with a what's it called? Information box and a toilet. Of course, you always need a toilet when at your entrance. And then I want on the first floor it will be complete. Second floor, it will be completely restaurant, and then we have the step down on the second floor, which also will be a restaurant. I normally build with just one wall piece, so I have the same wall inside and outside. But today I actually want different walls, even though they are both wood. I do believe that the feel of them is very, very different. Where the outside here are going to be this, I think it's a bamboo wall, so it's very, very Asian. And combined with these giant logs, I think it looks really good. Inside, I want it to be darker, a little colder, so we go away from this more warm tone we have outside and have this more neutral tone dark wood inside that gives these really pretty planks that also works really well with these giant timbers I use in here. However, even though I use bamboo walls here, I wouldn't call this a Asian build or any kind of build specifically. It's just a big wood building, and my biggest inspiration for it was actually like a tree house or a old timey wooden hall in a way. That's the best way to explain it. So there's a lot of things where, well, it could be this, it could be that, but the important thing here is that the feel around it is something that I really like, and I think I managed that much at least. However, let's talk a little bit about this brown-throated three-toed sloth. First of all, there's multiple different sloths out there. There's the three-toeds, which is one area of sloth, and there's the two-toeds. But we do actually also have something called the maned sloth, which sadly is extinct at this time, as far as I am aware. So the only living ones are the three-toed and the two-toed, but there's multiple different ones within each category. All of these sloths and the anteaters and the tamandua all belong in the same order in the animal kingdom, which is the Pilosa order, which is these, I don't really know how to say it, because they all have these really extreme claws that they can rip things open with, and they can climb with, and they can eat with. But besides that, from an anteater to a sloth, there's a little bit of differences in there. This is also why when we go down and look at families, we actually split away from both the anteaters and the tamandua. However, in this case, we do also split away from the Hoffman's two-toed sloth, so that one doesn't belong in the same family than all of the other sloths. So therefore, in the family here called Brachypodidae, only holds 4 of the 5 sloths. Again, one is extinct. So the 3 living one is the brown-throated three-toed sloth, the pygmy three-toed sloth, and the pale-throated three-toed sloth. So here we have the three-toed sloth, only though again the extinct one is not called 3 nor 2 toes, but it is a 3. It has 3 toes, so it would belong in that category if it existed before it got extinct, I assume. And all 4 of the sloths in this family have the same genus, which is Bradypus, which gives the brown-throated three-toed sloth the Latin name Bradypus variegatus, which actually is easier to pronounce, if you ask me, than its English name. Some of the information I'm gonna go into more specifically here you already heard about in my video I did before the DLC came out. I made a short video on every single animal that were in the pack or is in the pack, just to get to know them a little before. So some of the information here will be the same and some of them will not. One thing I find fascinating with sloth in general is the lack of speed. I don't think I insult anyone by saying it this way. And this specific sloth have a top speed. This is not the average speed. This is the top speed of 0.24 kilometers per hour. Just to compare to something, if you walk with a little pip in your step, you would normally walk around 5 kilometers per hour, which is 40 times the speed of this sloth. And with that, this is not only a slow sloth, it is the slowest sloth in the world. This also do explain the word sloth, or the name sloth, since sloth do mean slow. In Danish, and I know some other countries, the sloth is actually called lazy animal, which again is something that for me makes a ton of sense as a name for this specific animal. A kind of weird fact is that their normal color in the wild will be this greenish brownish color, but in captivity they would normally have a much more yellow or red toned or neutral toned brown. This is because in nature anything is allowed to stay in their fur. In captivity, we like to keep them a little clean, but because they don't really groom themselves that much and they live in these very humid areas of the world, algae just grows rapidly through the fur and give them this green tint to it. I'm just gonna go back here to the build for a second. As you can see here, we make this indoor area, and then we make that open area down here. You can see that where it's a little more airy. I do keep at the top this split in between the wall and the roof. I do that because again we are in these very humid areas of the world, and there will be a lot of humidity, which can be kind of disgusting over time because we have a very small area where a lot of people will be. They will sweat, they will be disgusting, it will smell. So we want to secure as much air as possible blowing through the building into all of the rooms, to simply make sure that we can get some of that humidity either out or fresh humidity in, instead of just walking around in other people's sweat. I also mentioned in a previous build in the zoo, it's gonna be a smaller zoo because, not because I want to, but simply when I build tropical places or zoos or habitat or whatever I build, I tend to go a little heavy with the number of things I use in here, and my computer don't like that. That's simply the reason. So I need to keep the count of things I use low. I actually wanted to make this even more detailed, but I am afraid that I can't finish the zoo if it starts lagging too much. So that's simply a choice, keeping it small so we can add as much detail as possible without making it too small. So you will have the same 8-meter road through the entire zoo, starting at the entrance building and going back into the entrance building, just to make sure that you can get up on this side, so you don't need to go back through the sloth twice if you don't want to. So we have the staircase here, so you can choose either to go through the gift shop or through the restaurant if you don't want to do both. So some of the barrier I put here on the path will be changed when we build habitats here, because we need some animals to walk under here, and we need to make sure that they can get through, because it's just too good of an opportunity to do to not choose to have animals in here. Anyway, Frontier of course chose this specific sloth for this specific pack because it do live in the tropical climate zone. For biomes though, we have a little to choose in between. We have the forest and the rainforest, which is primarily what I'm going with here, and I will say it's the easiest thing to do since it is an exhibit animal. Either forest, rainforest, but you could also go with the anthropogenic biome. They do also live in agricultural, which I guess you can build around it, but the montane forest is really, really hard to integrate into an exhibit box, also because you're not allowed to put water and stuff in there, which is kind of frustrating. It's a big step up for the old exhibit boxes, but for the new ones, I want a little more. I don't know if you will agree with me on this, but there's nothing better than your bed. It's nice to sleep when you can sleep. Anyway, it's nice to take a little nap, and it's nice to just relax. You don't have to do anything. It's just nice. However, I would never sleep the same amount of these sloths. They sleep on average between 15 and 18 hours a day. I would get crazy if I tried that. And then you may think that, okay, there must be something specific in the rest of the 6 to 9 hours that happens that make sure that they are awake at that time. For instance, cats like when the sun goes up and down, and we have that kind of dark, kind of light, so therefore they are up at that time. But these sloths are just like, well, I wake when I wake. I can wake at night, morning, afternoon, however. I'm just awake when I'm awake, and I sleep when I sleep. That's the general idea of it. There's not a schedule, there's not anything to predict when they will be asleep or awake. And this snaky thing I built here, it's generally just because I wanted to see what those pieces could do. And then I ended up liking it, but it's too big for in here, so we're gonna move it in a minute. But they're kind of funny to build well, and I guess if I wasn't filming, I would have done something. I would have tried to make it really like extremely big. But I also need to keep in mind when I film that I think this build overall took me like 7 hours. I had cut out at least 4 hours of this build and split the rest up for you to see it in a timely fashion. So yeah, I try to keep that in mind when I build, so I don't have to cut so much out. And while I talk about the buildings, now of course this piece you can't see it with, but some of the pieces I built you can see down in the menu where you pick the pieces. If there's something, a little colored mark up in the top right corner of the item, then it's from a prop pack. The color and shape of that can tell you exactly which pack it's from. For instance, the blue European mark is from the European Midnight pack. The orange African map is from the Safari prop pack. The purple India is from the Indian prop pack, and so on. I don't remember every single prop pack that I have, but for instance, we are both gonna use some gift shop items, which is a pink package or gift in the corner. And we are also gonna use some of the exhibit prop pack, which I'm gonna use actually off camera, because I'm only showing you like half of the gift shop, because I'm pretty sure either if I showed you it all, you would get crazy of it, basically. However, these two packs are the ones that are a little different. A lot of them you can see here, we actually use something from the orange, with the orange Africa mark, so the Safari prop pack. But these packs specifically I use here, you can see I use the pink package, the gift shop pack. It have this where it's actually small screens, if you can imagine that, but with multiple sides on to make books or t-shirts. These are plushies in a box. There's also plushies these are just flexi colored, so you could do them how you want to. And then I just downloaded a few skins for not these plushies, but for everything else in the pack. So I just used that. A few of the items here, I also just use pictures that I have from the background. Aquatic background pack. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but I think it is. And it's just really good if you want to build something like this, if you really want to go into nitty-gritty details with a gift shop. And it is weird some of these things aren't already in the game, because with gift shops there's just some things that we know are the first things we're gonna see. Plushies, definitely, hoodies, t-shirts, cups, and they're not in the game. So yeah, as you can see here, everything I place are initially just green, and then I just basically pick up it's the same menu as you use for a flat screen in the game, for instance. So you just do it that way. I really like doing it. I think I make a table here, then I do half of that, and then I did the rest of it off camera, not to borrow. But then I took the exhibit prop pack and took all of the, if you don't know, the exhibit prop pack is all of the props inside the exhibit boxes that is just taken out of the exhibit boxes, so you can do it how you want. But then there is the exhibited animal pack, which is the animals from the exhibit boxes that's been taken out, so you can use them as props. And I just placed them on one of the shelves as small animal figurines, plasticky things, because that's what I wanted to use them for. So again, you can use these packs exactly what you want, and you can see here there's so many different things to do. The things on this shelf here you can see are the pictures with the backdrop. Anyway, we're gonna jump here into the habitat and let's talk a little more about this beautiful sloth. If you ever seen one of these in real life, and I was intrigued that they actually have this feature in the game, it is really easy to tell males and females apart, because the males will have this part in between their shoulders where the hairs part, and then they have a scent gland base there. Typically, the fur back there will also vary in color for a more red to a more yellow color compared to the rest of the fur. But it is a scent gland they use to mark territory, like we see with multiple other animals. It seems a little unpractical to have it between your shoulders and the back, but if it works, it works, and clearly they are not extinct, so it must work. I think the game will allow you to have 6 sloths in the same habitat. However, in the wild, you have never observed 2 of them in the same tree. They can be in the general area together, but they are not that active for anything, and that includes social behavior. They do not groom each other, they do not interact with each other, they have antisocial behavior overall. However, they are not typically aggressive towards each other. Fighting do not appear or occur between individuals. However, they can protect themselves against other species if needed. Again, they have these kind of killer claws. They're just really slow to use them. And again, if they wanted to fight, a fight between them would probably take weeks to end. And at that point, they would both get hungry, probably. So it does make sense that they do not exactly fight. I also think I skipped something before when I talked about where they live. I didn't actually say, I only gave the biomes and the climate zones, but they are of course from Central and South America, which is Bolivia, Brazil, Colombia, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama, Peru, Venezuela, and Argentina. So if any of these countries are on your bucket list, there may be a chance of seeing these in the wild, but again, not cuddling up in a big group or anything like that. It's also quite common for animals living in warmer climates that they will regulate through the day where they sit and where they are to be out of the sun or in the sun to keep warm or cold. That doesn't happen like for hour to hour with the sloth, because it would take too long to actually move that far. But in general hotter seasons, you will find them lower in the trees, in between the branches where there's a lot of shadow, and in general periods of the year where it would be colder, they will climb higher up and go to the edge of the branches where there are less leaves to protect or to shadow them. Jumping back to the game again, real quick, these thingies, I use them all the time when I build something like that. it's much easier to than trying to make the path go around something. And they work though, even if you lower them into the ground. I'm not sure if you have multiple floors on top of each other, if they affect anything. I actually never tested that. But it just makes sure that the guests don't get through the what's it called, water thingy here. And I do the same with the gift shop a little later, just to make sure that the guest doesn't go into it. Again, if you just build and then move on, it's not an issue. But if you actually, like me, want to take pictures, cinematic shots, look at it for a while, cinematic shots sometimes takes me hours to get some good ones. So therefore, of course, you can work around it that way. So what's it called? Yeah, just to make sure that you do not take the perfect picture and then someone stands in the middle of a table or something like that. These sloths are, like many other animals, built for specifically where they live. They live in the trees. And this means that their claws, as we also talked about a little bit earlier this week, I think with the monitors, I think animals that live in trees have these claws that are placed in the way where they will go into the trees and keep them firmly on the tree. But when you put these claws on a flat surface, then the claws will go into that surface no matter what it is. If it's steel, it will ruin the claws really fast. But it could also be like ground, rock, and so on. And therefore, the brown-throated three-toed sloth is not able to actually walk on the ground. Therefore, instead, they will simply just lounge, just lay down, and then propel themselves forwards with their hind legs, which I want to see now because it sounds really uncomfortable but kind of funny, to be honest. What is also funny is that they do swim, but they do not want to actually walk on the ground to the lake. So what they do is they find a branch over the lake or a body of water, just climb out of the branch and let themselves fall into the water, and then they can swim. However, they will need to get back up in the trees, and if they cannot do that specifically from the water, they will have to push themselves forward in this really weird way to get back to the tree where they will be able to climb and be in their own habitat, a chosen habitat, we can also call it. So therefore, yeah, there's a lot going on there about that. But again, some animals are made to be able to be good at everything, and some animals are made to be masters of something, but then they're normally really bad at anything else, and the sloth is certainly one of them. Up here on the first floor, I needed to place this edge up here, basically because it looked stupid that you could see both pieces of wood, because I have these two walls that are different in color and color tone and all these things. So I just needed to place something up here to cover that. It can also be at the air in general because it's practical for people that they have this kind of little small table up here when they lean up and look out over the area. It can also be fairly useful if you just use some of the walls in the game because the top of them aren't always so pretty. These specific sloths are herbivores, which more specifically would be folivores and frugivores. Folivores eat foliage, which is leaves, flowers, and small parts of trees and so on, like foliage. And frugivores eat fruit, so they of course also eat that. I think most herbivores like fruit, but there are actually a few of them out there that would prefer more like more rough grain or grass or something over fruit. However, I would always choose the fruit over a piece of wood or grain, always. These sloths do have a mating season, however, it does change a little bit. For South American brown-throated three-toed sloth, it would be normally from July to November, but if they live a little more north in Central America, it would be from February to May. So there's a big change here. Earlier, they were believed to be monogamous, but since it have been proven then pretty fast after breeding, not the same day because they move really, really slow, but the male will leave as fast as he wants to. Like, again, it's not fast, but it's probably fast for their speed. At this point, the theory is either that they are polyamorous or polygamous. I didn't pronounce that right, but I hope you understand what I mean. So either they have multiple partners or they do not have any partners. They just jump from breeding to breeding around. Pregnancy will generally take between 5 and 8 months, which is a really big span there. And they will give birth to a single baby, which of course will be raised only by the mother because the daddy have already left. The baby will be independent after 5 to 10 months, and the baby will either be called a baby or a pup, while the mom is a sow and the male is, or the dad is a boar, which I really didn't make that comparison at all. The thing I do here with the signs is something that I feel some zoos do, but mostly those that are a little more out of the cities. And it was so fun when me and my brother was a child. We were always like, who can see the first sign first? Who can see the second sign first? And how long is there? So I just made a sign for when you are at the entrance 20 meters before, 50 meters before, and 100 meters before. And a meter is 3.3 feet roughly. So if you want to calculate that, but I am Danish, I use the metric system. So we go with meters today. Overall, the brown-throated three-toed sloth are doing quite well at this point, and their numbers are fine, but they do have more local issues in some of their range. For instance, in Colombia and in the Atlantic forest in Brazil, they do suffer from deforestation, which does cause both fragmentation and degradation of the natural habitat, which also of course fragments the populations. Again, they do not walk on ground, so if they can't climb from tree to tree or swim from tree to tree, they will in general not get there at all. They do also have local issues further in Colombia, where they are hunted by indigenous people. Some of them, primarily the babies, are threatened by illegal pet trade, where they are basically kidnapped from their mom to go and have a life somewhere as a pet in captivity. And yeah, maybe people are gonna take care of it and love it, but maybe people are just don't caring at all as to what's best for the animal in this case. The specific number of these beautiful sloths are currently unknown, though local numbers have been declining over time, which shows that at least locally these issues are becoming more and more of an issue. However, they are currently listed as a least concerned animal according to the IUCN Red List. But again, it is one of these animals where it would be better that we take action now than wait for them to become endangered. Because some animals, when they do become endangered, it's already too late. Not all of them, but for some of them. And again, sloths are quite unique, and sometimes all they would need was a rope from one tree to another to actually be able to mate. But in general, it's just fucked. Sorry, my language, but it's just fucked that some animals are in this situation because they really didn't need to be. Anyway, it does seems like we are reaching the end currently. It's just the final touches here, and then I actually just copied this part to make the forest look steeper. So when you look for down here, it looks like it continues much further than it actually does. It's something that I do a lot. I wanted the mountain path to only be inside the zoo. I thought about putting it out here, but I ended up not going with that. Anyway, we are starting the cinematics. Enjoy, and I will come back afterwards. Okay, guys, I think we're gonna end it here today. And thank you for being here for such a long time. It's been a long one, so I'm just gonna end it here. And as always, guys, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification so you know the next time I upload a video. I really hope to see you again, either in the comments below or in the next video. Bye, guys!